Good morning, Aubrey. How are you?
I'm great. Jessica, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Have you had to put out any dumpster fires
Oh gosh.
recently?
I feel like as an adult there are kind of always dumpster fires to put out. Um no big dumpster fires to put out, thankfully. What about you? Have you had to
No.
do that lately?
Well, yes, with my kids' school, they were really upset that they weren't going to be in the same class this year, and they were
Oh.
both like, "There's just some angst," even though they're not really old enough to have the angst. I don't know. So there was a bit of a dumpster fire there that we had to put out. I'm like, you know what? This is for the best, and but not a literal dumpster fire, right, Jessica? This is such a fun expression.
There So, guys, this phrase came up on a recent Apple Plus quiz that Aubrey and I were doing. Um, and I said the phrase dumpster fire, and both of us are like, this is such a great phrase to teach. We use this all the time as natives. And so this is the metaphorical sense of dumpster fire, right? So a dumpster, guys, is that huge trash bin. They're huge, huge trash bins. And unfortunately, in Portland, there are literal dumpster fires because we have so many homeless people. That sounds terrible, but it's true.
Well, and it can happen anywhere because if someone throws a cigarette in a
Yeah.
dumpster with a lot of paper, it can light on fire. So there are
So
literal
bad.
dumpster fires, but we use it, like you said, a metaphor, an idiom for just something that is a terrible situation. It's pretty extreme, like
Yeah.
something where emotions are heightened. Someone's really upset. Something went terribly wrong. We'll be like, what a dumpster fire that was.
Exactly. But it's so much more fun to say. It sort of improves a bad situation just a little bit because at least you can use fun words to connect with others about problems. And
Right.
we all have problems, guys. So today's vocabulary will make talking about those problems even more fun.
Yes, we're sharing 5 fun phrases related to garbage and dumpsters, but that we use idiomatically. We use as
Yes.
slang. You want to be using these. But first of all, if the quiz Jessica was talking about is not familiar to you, if you missed our fun conversation, you might not be subscribed on Apple Podcasts. So check it out. We do a quiz every episode, every All Ears English episode. You can take a quiz after. So don't miss out. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts to get those fun quizzes with me and Jessica.
They're so fun. Today's vocab, guys, is related to another All Ears English episode, 2110 Trashy English Vocabulary. That's so
Yes, this
fun.
was Lindsay and Michelle. It was a fun when they talked about like what is the difference between trash and garbage, but they also shared some fun phrases like trashy and trash talk. So yeah, check that one out if you missed it. Episode 2110, Trashy English Vocabulary.
Oh my gosh, I want to go into that vocabulary, but Michelle and Lindsay already did. So listen to that, guys. And then let's get into today's new trashy vocabulary.
Yes. So first, we're going to give you a few more examples of when you might say dumpster fire. This means like a disastrous situation. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Maybe, for example, if you plan and run a fundraiser and it doesn't go well, you might say, this fundraiser was a total dumpster fire. We went over budget and then didn't even reach our goal. Oh, that would be really terrible.
Oh, that sounds awful. Or for example, we could say, maybe like a friend walks up to you or you get home from work, and your partner says, hey, what's going on? How was your day? You could say, this day has been a dumpster fire. I mean, first of all, like I missed the bus and I had to walk all the way to work, and then the heel broke off my shoe and I slipped in the mud. I rocked up to the office covered in dirt, and I had the most important meeting of my life today. It was
Oh,
terrible.
covered in mud. That would be a dumpster fire, yes. This is definitely a phrase where if you just tell someone, today was a dumpster fire, they're going to want more information. They're not gonna be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
bummer." Like, it's extreme enough, and you're sort of almost setting up the story, right? You're
totally.
introducing, like, "The day was terrible, and Imma give you details."
Yeah, no, exactly. Nobody stops at dumpster fire. That's
No.
the thing, right? You
Yeah.
want to spill those details and vent to your friend. All right, so let's move on to the next term. This one is very easy, very common. garbage. It's a noun, it's slang, it's used for anything that's terrible. It could be a bad movie, a bad book, a bad day, a bad relationship, a bad person. You could use this to describe literally anything that is terrible.
Exactly. You might say, "This show is absolute garbage. I don't like it at all." If you're talking about a TV show, or "That book was such garbage. Why did I waste my time?"
Yeah, totally. Now let's be careful when we're describing people as garbage. Maybe guys, you shouldn't use this, but you will hear this. So, for example, you might hear someone say, you know, I hate to say it, but she's kind of a garbage person. It's so
This is
terrible.
really extreme. I've heard this most often if you are asking a friend about someone they were dating and it went
Yeah,
really terribly, they got ghosted, they were mean, they'd be like, "Honestly, she turned out to be a garbage person," right? You'd
totally.
say this because you feel still maybe hurt, like, it's very extreme. You're not gonna say this about just, like, your neighbor who's not being super friendly.
Yeah, no, it has to be like a really terrible person. Um,
Right.
the first thing that comes to mind for me is like this is great guys if you watch reality TV shows because they're like written and produced, right? It's not real. So those producers on those shows are making certain people into garbage people because it's
Right.
entertaining. So if
And
you
for they're edited that way, right?
right.
It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, the way they edit it made him look like a total garbage person."
Yeah. So if you
Yes.
enjoy those shows, fantastic. Talk about them with your friends and be like, "Oh man, Sabrina, that's new person at this season is really a garbage person."
Yes, that leads really well into our next phrase here, trash, which we use
Yeah.
as slang to mean terrible. It's very
Yeah.
similar to garbage, but
Yeah.
there's a specific phrase where we say trash TV, which is like
Yeah.
reality TV talk shows that are really not educational. They're focusing on controversy and confrontation. And like you said, Jessica, they're produced to make people look worse than they really are in person.
Totally. I think of like Jerry Springer from the 90s, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Do you watch any trash TV, Aubrey?
Every now and then, I got Peacock to watch the Olympics, and Love
Oh,
Island is on there. So I was like, "I'm gonna check out Love Island." It is the definition of trash TV, and you can really see how, like, I'm sure these people are good people, but it's edited to make it more interesting and crazy, but it's
yeah.
just such a waste of time, honestly. No offense to everyone who loves reality TV, but even if you love it, you have to admit it's such a waste of time.
I I can't. I can't even with reality TV. I don't know,
I
like, if
can't
I watch
even.
trash TV, like, I kinda feel like a trash person, you know?
Yes,
Like, I'm like, "Oh, this
totally.
makes me feel gross." Okay, so some more examples, guys, with the word trash. You could say, "Sorry, this soup is absolute trash. I think I used way too much salt." So in that case, like, I made the soup, I can call it trash, right? I wouldn't
Mhm.
say that about someone else's soup, though. That
No,
would be
never.
mean.
This is really mean. To call something trash or garbage is so extreme.
Yeah.
Like, if you use this to describe something someone did or made, it's very hurtful. There are so many ways to say that are more kind.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so here's an interesting phrase, guys, that you might have heard because we do say this a lot, unfortunately. White trash. Okay, this is not a good term, guys. We don't want you to say this, but you might hear it and we want you to be ready, right? So, Aubrey,
Yes.
how would you define that phrase white trash?
Yeah, it's very derogatory and it's
Yeah,
very informal.
yeah,
It refers to an underprivileged white social group,
yeah,
right? So for whatever reason, and you'll hear it a lot on TV, on these reality shows we're talking about, someone might call
yeah,
someone else this, but like
yeah,
Jessica said, we're not recommending it because it is such a harsh judgment and is
yeah.
really a pretty inappropriate thing to, of course, to base something on someone's race.
Yeah, totally. It has connotations of like this is what poor people do. They are uneducated. They like
Right.
it's just judgment. That's all it is. It's like really horrible judgment on another person. So
I
yeah,
feel like it's
stay
sort
away
of
from it.
going away, right? It used to
I
be
think
in
so.
older shows, 80s, 90s, you might hear it all the time.
Yeah.
And more as we're starting to be more sensitive, recognizing stereotypes, we're hearing it less. Thank
Yeah.
goodness, right?
Yeah.
This should be kind of phased out.
Yeah, totally. All right. So the last term today before we get to the role play, rubbish. This is super fun because it's very Britishy, right? It is British slang, but a lot of people in the US also use it these days, right? So it's the same as like trash or garbage. It's just British
Yes.
slang for the same thing.
Yeah, it might be sort of being adopted in the States because we're hearing it on British TV shows and pop
Yeah.
culture, and it's just so fun. It's such a fun word to say,
It
but I
is.
do hear it in the US a lot as well. It means worthless or useless, very similar to
Yeah.
trash or garbage. You might just say, "That's a bunch of rubbish." I hear that often if I think someone's not telling the truth, right? Be
Yes.
like, "That's rubbish."
Exactly. If you feel like, yeah, exactly, somebody is lying or, has exaggerated somehow and it's just not true anymore what they're saying, you're like, that's rubbish. Just stop it. Or like, what if you plug in your phone and it doesn't charge? You'd be like, ugh, this battery is rubbish, or this phone charger is rubbish. Maybe you don't like your teacher. He's a rubbish teacher. I mean, these are all, I feel like garbage and trash because they're more meaningful to us, we use them more. That rubbish is like slightly less harsh.
I
Rubbish is like
agree.
because it sounds British, so it sounds better somehow.
Yes, it sounds I agree with less harsh. I don't think I would say, like, he's a trash teacher, he's a garbage teacher, that
Yeah,
sounds so awful and mean, but I would maybe say
it is
he's
a
a
little.
rubbish teacher. If
Yeah,
he's given
right.
me a grade I don't feel I deserve, it doesn't feel so cruel, it's a little more playful.
Exactly, exactly. All right. So in this role play, guys, Aubrey and I are just leaving the movie theater, which, if we lived in the same town, would absolutely happen.
Absolutely, we would go to the movies together for sure, so this feels appropriate. Alright, you start us out,
All right,
Jessica.
here we go. That movie was a dumpster fire.
Seriously, first time I've left a film early in a long time. Rubbish acting, trash plot, garbage writing.
I'd rather watch trash TV, and that's saying something.
You know what else was garbage? The popcorn. Mine was
Ugh.
soggy. Was yours?
No, you must have added too much butter. Talk about adding insult to injury. We need to go to the movies again soon to erase this night from existence. It's so dramatic.
I know.
Last
I kind of love
line.
this though. I feel like if I left a movie and it was that bad, bad enough for me to leave early, I would be dramatic like this. I'd be so disappointed.
I've only left the movies once. I've only left the theaters once. I was in high school and my mom and I were watching Dances with Wolves and we both hated it so much and we left. That's the only time I've left.
That's so funny. I watched that a bunch of times as a kid,
I don't know
but
why I hated it so
that's
much.
really funny. Oh, like, let's go through this. So
Uh,
first of all, you said that movie was a dumpster fire. Automatically here, you're sharing that you hated it. You thought it was garbage, and I'm
mhm.
agreeing. Clearly, we've both left early, so we agree. And this
Yep.
is where I might say all of these, right? I'm listing them off. Rubbish acting, trash plot, garbage writing, meaning I hated everything about the movie.
And you could mix up any of
Yes.
those, right? So Aubrey said rubbish acting, trash plot, garbage writing. I could easily say garbage acting, rubbish plot. Like you could just mix and match those, guys. So rubbish, trash, garbage, they could all be used.
Yes. Yeah, they're all
Yeah,
interchangeable. Yes.
interchangeable. I couldn't think of that word.
Yes. And then you said, "I'd rather watch trash TV," and that's saying something. I love this phrase, "That's saying something," because we know each other well enough that I know you don't like reality TV talk shows, you don't usually watch trash TV, so
Yeah.
you're using this to exaggerate, to, like, show how much you hated that movie. "I'd rather watch trash TV," and that is saying something.
Right, right. And then you described your popcorn as soggy, right? Because you're like, what? You know what else was garbage? The popcorn. So soggy is just like wet,
Too wet,
right?
something.
Wet
Yeah.
popcorn. Oh, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, like I can't hide my emotions. It's all on my face. As soon as you said your popcorn was soggy, I was like, oh God, that sounds so gross.
Yes, soggy definitely has a negative connotation, right? Because there are things that should be wet or moist, like a tres leches cake, yum,
Right.
but soggy means like it shouldn't. I feel like it shouldn't be wet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
Too much wet.
gross wetness.
Yeah.
All right. And then I said, talk about adding insult to injury. Another great phrase, guys. So you can use this to comment on someone's news if it was like this bad thing happened after another bad thing, right?
Yes.
So it's like too many bad things happened. You're like, oh, Talk about adding insult to injury. So that is it's such a great like empathetic phrase, right? Like, "Oh my gosh, I hear all of these bad things that happened to you or that you went through today and, like I feel ya. That's terrible."
Yes, right. We're saying sort of like to top it all off, this
Yeah,
happened, which made it even worse. I agree. I love that so many of these phrases are a great way to like bond over something terrible that
totally.
happened, right? This is when
Yeah,
we use them most often. If someone watched something terrible or went through a terrible situation, this is a great way to support them to be like, oh
exactly.
man, I can't believe that. That's garbage.
Exactly. Because a lot of times that your friends are venting to you,
Right.
we're not looking for solutions. They're not looking for you to fix things. A lot of times they just want an empathetic ear, right? So these phrases today, guys, you can comment on a friend's bad day. You can comment on a coworker's difficulties by just backing them up and saying, "Yeah, no, like that was garbage. I agree. Like
Exactly.
let's go get some coffee and some
Right.
Trace Leches
Exactly.
cake."
Yes, that's such a good takeaway, right? We're all going to have dumpster fire days. We're all going to
Yeah.
have these. And it's really nice to have a friend who will support and use this vocabulary to help show them that support that you understand you've been through it too.
Exactly, exactly. All right, Aubrey. I hope that none of your days this week are a dumpster fire. Thanks for
Same.
having me on All Ears English.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Jessica. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.